little bit of background. This is the week after Matsuri. Didn't end up taking the S13, replaced the clutch. I bought the wrong clutch, basically. This thing runs like a pretty grunty, didn't know if I got it with me. But the bell housing on the RB box hasn't been machined. Uses like a 25mm adapter, and turns out it uses an S13 style clutch, so it's got a much deeper flywheel, dual mass replacement. This is for the turbo 6-speed gearbox. So I bought an X80 Hyper Single off Matt Heslin. And we got it all in, obviously nothing lined up. There's no engagement of the spline into the input shaft into the clutch plate itself, so nothing was working. So we tried another S15 gearbox kit after a bit of research. There was one in stock at Joe's old work, so we chucked that in. Everything lined up, everything worked, but the car was super laboured when it was starting. It sounded like the car was kind of like half in gear or something. But got the thing started a couple of times and turned off and back on. And then it was running, feeling more and more laboured. And then eventually it just died. So it was just like, and then on the key, it was just nothing. It was just on the key. So we thought we'd maybe left something in the bell housing or something. There was no sort of metallic noises or anything. So pulled everything out, pulled the flywheel off. Everything looked fine. Still couldn't turn the motor over, even by hand. So there's something wrong. Clearly. Thought we might have walked the crank, but I just don't think that would be possible with that clutch setup. So we pulled the rocker cover off. Everything looks okay. The only thing I picked up was how tight this timing chain is. So after a bit of research online, apparently this is kind of common in SRs, but it looks like one of the cams may have seized in there or snapped under one of the cam caps there. So I'm going to sort of rip into this and see what's actually going on. I've sort of used this as an excuse to do a bit more work on this thing. Well, depending on what's wrong with the motor. I pulled all the hot side off, which I'm trying to sell. The TD06 and Synco and all that kind of stuff. We'll probably end up pulling this motor out anyway and like painting the engine bay and tidying a few things up in here as well. But I'm just curious. This thing's probably not going to be moving for a little while. I'm really keen to get the Verossa going and road legal and stuff like that. So, plus we've got quite a bit of work to do on the S14 as well. So this will probably take the back burner for a little bit, but I'm mostly curious to see what's actually happened here. So yeah, let's get into it, have a squiz. Everything here looks okay. None of the cam's not snapped. Everything looks like it's where it needs to be. Got these kind of dark lines on the cams, just on the exhaust cam. Now apparently this may actually be an HK step 3 head, so need to do a little bit of checking, but it looks like this maybe a solid lifter engine, and they run a hardened HKS rocker. You can see in there this thing, well, you can't really see, but this dual valve spring. Looks like the lash might be adjusted with these shims under the, I don't really know. Fuck. But yeah, anyway, I'll take this radiator out, and then I can try and turn the thing over again. See what's, I mean, we're probably going to have to pull the head off. But yeah, we'll keep looking. Right, I've taken the rockers and lifters out. It's definitely a solid lifter head, solid lifter conversion. It looks like this is probably the Step 3 HKS stuff. I've got some different rockers here, and they've got different markings, so I assume, I don't really know, but everything seems okay. Like, it's really hard to tell. You can sort of see all the ends of all the valves, so doesn't look like it's dropped a valve, unless it's, I mean, could probably have dropped and not see it from up here, but yeah. Keep digging. Just laid everything out here. It's pretty important with this stuff to be pretty organized. Make sure you got everything labeled and laid out how it needs to go back in. This will probably stay like this for a long time. If there's something wrong with the bottom end of this engine, it's going to be a long time before I get this going again, probably. If I need to build another bottom end. But yeah, it is what it is. Right, so I still can't turn the motor over. So something in the bottom end is jammed up, or it seized or something. So I'll just whip the manifold off, intake manifold off, gonna take the head off. I mean, it's got to come off anyway, but just interested to see if I can see anything inside the motor. Alright, so you would have seen a bit of footage there, pulling the motor down on the S13. Yeah, so some pretty bad luck. What ended up actually happening, I didn't really film too much. When we put the new clutch in, I must have been starting the car with my foot on the clutch. And what that did was sort of squeeze out. Obviously, doesn't end up being a lot of oil between the thrust washer and the face of the crank. So yeah, I guess I don't even remember doing it, but I think I did. Just being unsure with the new clutch and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, what had happened is it was rotating on that. It would wear out the copper material on the thrust washer face, and then eventually, once all that material had disappeared, it went down to the steel of the thrust washer. It just eventually friction welded itself to that crank face, hence locking up the motor. So yeah, a bit of bad luck with that. So obviously after that we got sort of concentrated on the Verossa. So yeah, a bit of explaining to do there as well. There was a lot of bad luck with that car as well, and I pretty much just got over it and parted the car out. So the Verossa's gone. Pretty much everything on the car went in about 48 hours, the whole thing, and I got a lot more than I would have got trying to sell it separately, plus I wanted to keep some parts. So yeah, Verossa's gone. There was a culmination of things with that. Some of you might have seen my Instagram
So first drift force shakedown after the tune, the diff blew up. That locked up on me coming down the straight. A bit of stupidity there on my part. Really, I got the diff off a buddy of mine, so I assumed that he hadn't drained the oil out of the diff, but there was no oil in it. So the Verossa did its full dyno tune and a couple of street pulls and 10 laps at Hampton Downs with like hardly any diff oil in it. So yeah, the front pinion bearing just collapsed on itself, locked up the whole thing. So that was a downer. So between that drift force and that happening in the next one, I got a two-way centre from Jesse Streeter, Cars two-way, had a spare diff, found another 4-1 ring and pinion, thankfully. So built that diff. Next drift force took it out again. And the diff was really nice. The car felt a lot better. Two ways are definitely the way to go. But I had this one issue of oil just ending up everywhere. And what it ended up being was a sandwich block, a G-Ready sandwich block that was slightly too small on the O-ring to seal onto the block. The block had all of the original like water heater stuff removed by the oil filter, just for ease of maintenance. And I just thought that was loose, so we tightened that up, but that just made it worse. So once the oil got hot, and it got hot for another reason as well, which I'll get into after this, it just was pissing out the side of the sandwich block, putting oil everywhere. So besides that happening, that same track day, without me realizing or noticing, the car was running kind of hot, like got quite hot on track. It was like sitting just over sort of 100, 110, and it was taking ages to cool down, like even driving around the track. So what had happened, it's common as on these motors, on the 1J motors, is that the rear heater hose feed at the back of the head had popped out. Now that is a steel elbow that is just like interference fit into the alloy of the head. So when these things get hot, it just sort of loosens up and they pop out. They're not threaded in, nothing. They're literally just pushed in. And I did know about this, and I did JB weld it in there, which is apparently a common fix. Because in the JZX 110, it's really hard. You can't actually get out there to tap it and put it like an AN fitting or a dash 10 fitting on there, which is the common, the best fix for it. I hadn't realized that it had blown out, so the thing had basically dropped most of its water as well. So that put me on the trailer. I just got over it, put it on the trailer, and then basically on the way home I just decided I was going to park the car out. There was an initial thought to put the 1J from that into the S13. That lasted about 3 minutes, and yeah, so I still haven't pulled the engine down on the Verossa. The motor's the only thing I still have sitting at the workshop. After pulling everything apart, there was still a fair amount of water in the radiator and in the system. I think it was really we did a compression test. It was really low. It's like 90, 90, 80, 70, 40, 70. So it's really low. It should be up around 150-ish on that motor. I think, and I hope it's just done a head gasket. So I'm still yet to pull that motor down. So yeah, yet to be decided what happens with that engine. I'll probably just sell it on. The other motor as well, the other S13 motor, back to that is salvageable. There was a slight marking on the crank which can be phased off, and a slight little bit of damage where the thrust washer tang seats into the block, kind of where it had pulled around a little bit and sort of gouged a little bit of material out of the block, that can be faced out as well. So that whole motor can be put back together. It's a forged motor, so it's not, I'm not going to throw it out. I'll save it, put some new bearings in it, and decide what to do with that later. That may end up in the red car. It's handy to have a spare motor. But anyhow, in the meantime, we've had some other interesting things happen, so we'll get into that. We have a new motor. So this motor, this freaking garage is so low, good grief. This motor came from Adrian from Phoenix. It was a motor, I think was gonna go in as S14 maybe, but they ended up with the VE in it. But yeah, nice motor, S14 based engine, which obviously looks a lot better with the different plenum and all that kind of jazz. This is a fully built motor. I can't remember the exact specs on it off the top of my head, but rods, pistons, it's got some Calford cams in it. Yeah, it's all been vapor blasted and zinced hardware and all that kind of stuff, so that's really nice. So you can see I've painted the engine bay. And yeah, we've had quite a bit of progress on this actually, it's been quite good. This is the old turbo off the Verossa, so that's the Pulsar G3660. This should be an interesting match for this motor. I mean, effectively this is a new 3071, so that's what we ran on the 180, and the C's boys are running on their cars and stuff like that, and Joseph's running on his, so be interesting to see what this sort of, even though it's not a genuine Garrett, just going to be interesting to see what it can do comparison wise. It is on this freaking sick Artec investment cast stainless manifold, which I got from NST. Beautiful bit of kit, cheers for that, Renee and the team there. And the Turbo Smart 45, which Hypergate, which was off the Verossa as well, so that's on there. Yeah, so getting into this now. Yeah, got engine bay painted. I've got a pretty tight timeline on this. Well, I've set myself one. So basically a bit of fab work to do now, really. Wiring to do, which is cool. I've pulled all of the wiring out of the car, so I've got to do a chassis harness as well, but it's not a major. We can get it done. Oh, and I've gone to S13 front, like Sylvia front. I was never a huge fan of 1Via. So yeah, we've gone back to S13 front. I have D-Max front for it here. The Go-Go boys had a mold, and I've made a S13 Sylvia D-Max front to match the rest of the aero on the car. So yeah, we'll keep following this. This video is probably getting a bit long now, but anyway, this is sort of where we're at. Verossa's gone, which is nice. Oh yeah, I got these 57 CRs as well. Got a pair 17.9s for the front. I've got to get off Nathan Malmo. So yeah. Oh my god. So yeah, there's a bit of stuff happening, which is always exciting. I like to keep it fresh. Yeah, the Verossa thing, it was just, I mean, it was a nice idea, but the reality is I don't have space for 2 cars at this house. I didn't really want to park anything outside. Just too much of a logistical nightmare. And like having a street car isn't, I'm too old for that, to be quite fair. I like driving my ute. So yeah, anyway, we'll keep everyone up to date with this build. There's other few things in the background that we're working on as well for D Club and stuff like that. So pretty long process, but we're trying to make a few changes and sort of ramp things up a little bit as far as sort of merchandise goes, and possibly some parts and stuff like that. So yeah, keep an eye out, and you will see you on the next one.